Hello, Becky here. Welcome back to my channel. I am here to do a quarterly update. I am very far behind in this. It's more like a third of the year update now, but I am terrible, first of all, at keeping up with consistency and my videos and planning the timing and stuff like that. Partly it's because I'm just bad at it, partly because I have kids and finding the time. I also got really sick over Easter break. The kids had Good Friday into the weekend, Easter off, and then that whole following week was off. And we went and saw the Mario movie on that Thursday before Good Friday. And then Friday morning, my son woke up, had a fever. Saturday, he still had a fever. And then Saturday night, I started to feel a little bit like chesty, and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna get a cold now. And then I woke up Sunday really sick, ended up with a fever. My husband's last day off, like he only had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. So he took Monday off to help take care of the kids while I just stayed in bed all day. And then my in-laws came over Tuesday to help take care of the kids while I spent 3 whole days in bed. So I am even farther behind in doing this wrap up because all of spring break sucked. We just stayed in bed the whole time. And then all the kids got coughs. Just me and my son had fevers. Thankfully, nobody else got a fever. And my husband took another day off of work that week because I had spent a few hours all night in the hospital just getting checked out, but everything was fine, thankfully. So I'm extra far behind on that. And I'm still having a cough and stuff like that, so if I sound a little bit sick, that is why. But I am going to jump into doing my stats, and I'm not really good at doing the stats myself. I know the stats because the Storygraph keeps track of them for me. So I am going to screen record if I can on my computer because I record on my phone. So we are just going to go through my stats on the computer, and I'll put it up here beside me on the screen. But we're just going to go through that and talk about what I've read for the first third of the year now because we're in April. And let's see if I can get this going. I want to record my screen or camera. I will not be live streaming, so this is just on Streamlabs. My husband uses this once a year for his extra life gaming that he does where he raises money for children's hospitals, and ours goes to the Stollery in Edmonton. So, move this over a little bit. I should have figured all this out. Oh, that's editor. I should have figured all this out before hitting record on here, but I was just like, all I need to do is open Streamlabs and it will work. I have opened up my screen to reading stats, and I'm just doing 2023 and from the beginning to now. So my goal is 75 books, and I have read 20 books so far, and I have 3 books until you're back on track. So I was on track, but there was a couple of books that I had started in 2022 and finished in 2023, and it counted those as read in 2023, and then I was on track. But I didn't want those as part of my stats. I wanted to be able to show just what I had started and completed in 2023. I don't think you're quite balanced. So I ended up going and deleting those off of the 2023 stats. So I am a little bit behind, but I am doing okay because if you go to my currently reading, I have 5 books on the go. So this will eventually be back on track. So I'm not quite on track just yet, but we'll get there. I love that the Storygraph does its own charts and everything like that. So you can see the moods. So I've read 20 books, which equals 6,923 pages. And I got reflective. It says at the bottom here, reflective, emotional, mysterious, dark. Dark's pretty big. If I click on it, I believe, it will show me what it considers the dark reads. So The Long Walk by Stephen King, Nana by Brandon Massey, Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks, We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver, and Beyond Reach, I just finished yesterday, by Karen Slaughter. And her books I've only read from the Grant County series, and this was the last one. I think it was written in 2007, and it ended devastatingly. So I haven't read any other Karen Slaughter books. I have a couple on my physical TBR. Dog has a diaper. Where did you get that from? Anyways, yeah, I haven't read any other Karen Slaughter books so far. There's Rex in the background doing his little head banging. So I don't know. I know her books are quite intense and graphic, violence-wise, but I don't know this Grand County, there's these three main characters that you are following from their perspectives throughout the 6 books. And it just ended, and it was devastating, and it just flipped the page. It's like this devastating moment happened, and I knew I was close to the end, but I just flipped the page, and it's like acknowledgments, and I was like, how can you do this to us? How can you just end like that? And I'm assuming since it was written, first published in 2007, that's it. There's no more going to be in this Grant County series. So I am very curious to jump into more Karen Slaughter, but also devastated by the ending of this book. So yeah, that would be dark. And we need to talk about Kevin. I need to do like a whole other dedicated review on that book. That one was definitely dark. And she went and got the other diaper. She's going into my bedroom. Trying to keep my baby asleep. And the puppy is not helping. Anyways, we need to talk about Kevin. That one was very intense. Honestly, it was something else for sure. It was very, very dark. So you can see here, like let's go to lighthearted since we just saw dark. So lighthearted would be the Spy Family Volume 3, which I would agree with that. Very, very funny. This is the only real manga I have read. I read the first bind up of The Monster, but that's it. The library didn't have any other ones. So besides that, Spy Family is the only manga I've dived into. And it is funny. Like, I've laughed out loud. The visuals, the manga part of it is very much, like, the story is good and funny, but the manga, like, the drawing part, the pictures of it really adds to the comedy of it, I guess. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, one of my favorite books I've read so far this year. The Bookish Life of Nina Hill, and The Bodyguard. So I'm going to talk about The Bookish Life and The Very Secret Society in another part. And The Bodyguard I really, really enjoyed and appreciated as well. So anyways, that's a little breakdown of the books I've read, and it even tells you like value. I've read 4 adventurous books, 3 tense books, and of course like some of these, like all 3 of these were under dark as well. The Long Walk, Kevin, and Beyond Reach. So obviously like genres and moods and stuff like that, they can go across moods they are. And then the pace, so I've read 3 that are considered a slower pace. 40%, 8 books, is medium pace, and then 45% is fast pace. Page number, so I've only read 5 under 300 pages. The majority of the books I've been reading have been 300 to 499 pages, a total of 13 books. And 2 books over 500 pages long. Nonfiction, I've had 3 nonfiction and 17 fiction so far, and I have a few other nonfiction on the go that I haven't completed yet. And then this is a breakdown of the genres I've been reading, so like 5 contemporary, 4 thriller, 3 romance, and I got mystery. I've got 3 memoir right now. I'm going to do a video later on in the year after I've completed a few more of my memoir books that are on my currently reading. And that seems to be something I've been diving into more this year, because that averages out, we're into the 4th month now, but that averages about 3 a month, or 3 a month, 1 a month, and I'm in about the middle of Will by Will Smith with my husband, so yeah, like 1 a month so far for memoirs. And then manga, I've read 1, of course, The Spy Family. Horror, 1 graphic novel so far, crime, and 1 comic, which I think is, The Secret Garden, which is also a graphic novel. I would not consider The Secret Garden a comic. It's a graphic novel. It was really good, really well done. My daughter read it before I did. She actually found it for me from the library because the buzzword for March was secret, and my daughter was kind of having in a bad mood, and we're at the library, and she loves just looking through the graphic novels in the middle grade section because she is 9. That's what age range she is reading in right now. And I told her to find a book with the word secret in it, and she came back with this, and it's a retelling of The Secret Garden, and this is on 81st Street, and it was really good. Some heavy topics in there. I mean, the girl, her parents die, and then she goes to live with her uncle, who has lost his husband, and there's like severe depression and really bad anxiety with a kid that is experiencing bad anxiety and having panic attacks. And so it's some really heavy topics. Like, my 9-year-old read this, and then I read it, and I was like, wow, like, this was tough stuff, but really good, and I think it was a really good retelling. I did read The Secret Garden a few years ago. It's been a while. I don't remember everything that happened in it, but I thought it was a really good retelling and a graphic novel, so good visuals and stuff like that as well. So 65% of what I've been reading has been print books, and 35% has been audio. So I guess I've listened to 70.83 hours worth of books. So I've been doing a lot more audio lately in the past few years. And I've used Libby or Hoopla from my library, and I have paid for a couple months subscription to Scribd as well. Somebody else was like sponsored by them, and I had a 2-month free trial through them. And then I ended up paying for it for a month. I was like, oh darn, I forgot about that. And then there was a few other books that I wanted on there as well, so I just paid for another month. I don't mind paying for it every once in a while. I just don't need to spend the $12.99 Canadian a month on it right at this time. But yeah, that's my format. I want to read more ebooks from my library and stuff, but I'm just not finding the ones I want available, like when I need them available. So I need to go and find out the stat of what has been borrowed from the library versus what is already on my shelves. So like if I click here, I could just go through and look. Such a Fun Age, I do own. Through Black Spruce, I own. In My Own Moccasins, I own it, but it was actually from the library. The library and the municipality have joined together to do a book club called It's Time to Read, and it is mostly memoirs from Indigenous people. I think the 3 books we've done have all been Canadian Indigenous people that I've been a part of the book club, not other like Asian or Black or anything, just so far just Indigenous, but I think it's meant to just focus on Indigenous voices. So that's the It's Time to Read, Building Bridges Through Books. You can see here. So In My Own Moccasins, I do own it, but it actually came as a package from the library. Peace and Turmoil, I owned. Banned Book Club was borrowed from the library. Spy Family, I own all of them now, I believe. The Secret Garden was borrowed from the library. Beyond Reach, Watch Us Rise, and Once Upon a Wardrobe, I own those. The Secret Society was borrowed from the library. The Bookish Life and Messenger were 2 books that I physically own. So that's good. The majority of what I'm reading is books I own, and then anything audio would be borrowed. I don't own. So I own The Long Walk, but I got bored of it and I wasn't going to finish it. People were talking about like how much they love this book and stuff, so I was like, fine, I'll finish listening to it. Yeah, I just ended up counting it as just an audiobook because I listened to the majority of it versus reading it, and it, not that the book was good or bad, it just wasn't for me. And this was read for the buzzword for February, which was The Long Walk, and the buzzword was verbs. Nana was a book I read for book club, The Book Troop with Gabby. I listened to that as an audiobook through, I think that one was through Scribd. And then The Kind Worth Killing, I owned this book and I ended up listening to it as an audiobook because I was sick in bed for 3 days and just having a hard time reading. So I just ended up listening to it as an audiobook. I believe this one was also through Scribd because I am paying for Scribd. I try to get my audiobooks through them for that month that I'm paying for. We Need to Talk About Kevin was also, that is why I ended up getting another month of Scribd, was because We Need to Talk About Kevin, which I couldn't find for free from my library. And this book was so dense to read it. And it is written as letters and just so dense. I was like, who talks like this? Does anybody actually talk like this? But I guess like when you're writing a letter, it is a little bit different versus like when you're just talking to somebody. But it was just very, very dense and I wanted to keep reading it though. So I got this as an audiobook through Scribd. And I am glad I was able to get through the book that way. And I'm glad my mom died. Usually I do memoirs through audiobooks, especially when the author narrates it themselves. Yeah, obviously that one was borrowed. Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun, I think I just got through Libby, and that was for the Literally Dead Book Club through Kayla for the February book club pick, and that was Jumps as well, which was the buzzword for February was verbs. So I did Finley Donovan Jumps the Gun, and then We Need to Talk About Kevin. And then I also just listened to The Bodyguard just because I wanted to. Kayla had actually mentioned it was one of her favorite of the romance books that she read last year, and I really, really enjoyed that one. And there's some stuff talked about in there. The main character talks about being a shark and needing to swim and get the water like over her gills kind of thing, like she needs to keep moving and everything. And at the end of the book, her and the love interest are talking, and he talks about like, you're a shark, you need to swim, you need to have your job as a bodyguard and travel and keep busy and stuff like that. And there was a lot of respect for one another's passions. Like, he's an actor and he is not interested in continuing to act full time, but there are a few like projects that he wanted to work on, and she's like, yeah, go for it. And she supports him in what he wants to do, and he is supporting her in her dreams and her goals and the job that she is passionate about as a bodyguard. She's the bodyguard in this case. It is a fake dating. If you don't know, he needs a bodyguard because he's an actor and he has been off the scene for a while because of a tragic accident with his brother. He has stopped acting and his mother is going for cancer treatment, so he's going back home to visit, and she is the fake girlfriend because he doesn't want anyone to know that she's a bodyguard looking out after him, right? So sometimes you don't want like an obvious bodyguard around, so that's kind of her job, and that's like what the company is good at, is having bodyguards that don't look like bodyguards kind of thing. Overall, I really enjoyed that book, and there is a scene in the book, if you have read this book, with cows, that like she gets scared by cows, and I was like laughing. It was just funny. And I really enjoyed that one. So, most read authors. So, everything I've read so far, apparently I've only read from one author each. I haven't read any authors more than once so far. I'm sure that will change, but they're all in English because I am an English speaker, and that's it. That's all I can read, write, speak. So, I don't read a ton of books each month. It says in January I read 4 books. In February I read 6. In March I read 6. And in April, so far, I've read 4. So I wouldn't say I read more than 10 books in a month. That would be a big month for me to read more than 10 books. Like, that would be pretty high. So I am not in the booktube world. I don't read a whole ton of books compared to other people. But I know I do read a lot compared to other people. So, it all balances out. And it doesn't matter how much you're reading. I did that reading challenge of reading 30 pages a day, and it's just about being consistent, and it's not a competition with yourself or with other people. And that 75 book goal is just, it doesn't mean anything. I hope I hit that goal, but it's just for my own stats and records and stuff. It doesn't matter if I reach that goal or not. I'm actually trying to read less books because I hit 120 back in 2020, and I keep saying this about how it ended up just being about reading and getting through books, and then I just couldn't remember much of anything in my reading. Felt like it didn't really matter as much. So I want to have less number of books and a higher impact in the books that I am reading. And then my star rating is 5 because I only rate the ones that are obvious 5 stars. 5 stars. The only other thing I was going to talk about is the buzzwords that I've read for. So I'm going to go here. Earliest read, we can see what I've accomplished so far in 2023. So The Bookish Life of Nina Hill, you can see I read for the January buzzword, which was life or death. And I really enjoyed this book, and I give it a 5 out of 5. I loved it. I raved about it to my husband and stuff. But it's not really a book that has stuck with me, but it was really fun in the moment. And if you like reading and you like trivia and you like Friends, you'll like this Bookish Life. There's a little bit of a romance to it, but it's not super heavy in there. But it's just exactly what the title says it is, The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. And there was a couple quotes from it I wrote down in my journal tracking thing. I always remember the quote from Friends. She says, "What am I going to say next? Gum would be perfection." And I'm like, this is amazing. This is totally my kind of book. Because I can quote Friends up, down, backwards, sideways. I just really enjoyed it, and it was a good time while I was reading it. So if you want a fun, light-hearted book to read, and you like books and you like reading, Nina works in a bookstore. So you like that, you like trivia, she's part of a trivia team, and lists. She has a little list that she is a daily or weekly plans kind of list, and you like Friends, you will enjoy this book. And it's just a good time, and it doesn't require a lot of thinking or brain power or anything like that. It's just good and it's fun, and I just really enjoyed it. And I'm glad that I read that for the buzzword, and that was the first book, the first buzzword book, and it was a book off my bookshelf, and I have a collection of books on my bookshelves that are all about bookish things, like libraries, bookstores, bookish lives. So I'm glad I got to read one of those books from that collection as well. Through Black Spruce was a buddy read with a friend of mine. This lady in Edmonton got us each 4 books, wrapped them up, and they're she got 2 of Through Black Spruce, wrapped them up, wrote the number 3 on them, and was like, here you go. So we still have the 4th one to go through. This was the 3rd one. They're all Canadian authors, and they've all been like okay, but they're kind of like old and outdated, and me and my friend are like, maybe next time we'll just each go to the bookstore and find a book to buy and buddy read together. Like, we'll just kind of do our own mystery book thing. And if you go to Chapters, they do have 2 for $20 books, 2 for $20. So I was like, we could just do that and each like buy 2 of the same book kind of thing and then send it to each other or whatever. But they've been okay. And then in February, the buzzword was verbs. So not so much a word, but a theme. So verbs, I did The Long Walk by Stephen King. Again, it was okay. It was gross, and boys, not even men, just boys, are disgusting. And if you don't know what The Long Walk is, it is these kids between, I think, 13 or 14 up to 18, and they just walk until they drop. And then when they stop walking, they get shot in the head. And that's it. And there's a prize at the end for the last man walking, and I don't know what it is. And it kind of has this ambiguous ending, and it's really weird. Banned Book Club I picked up from my library because of they had a display of banned books and why different books were banned. So I picked up this one, which is like a graphic novel memoir. And Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun, which was the other verb. And then we need to talk about Kevin, which was, again, the verb for February. And then in March, the buzzword was secret. So we went with The Secret Garden on 81st Street, a modern retelling of The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, Ivy Noel Weir, and Amber Padilla. So I think Amber is the illustrator. And really good. If you like The Secret Garden and you want a more modern take on it and middle grade age and a graphic novel, really, really highly recommend this one. And then The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I read this for the buzzword secret and really, really loved it, and very cozy, found family. And I talk about this one more in my reading 30 pages a day challenge. I talk about The Very Secret Society as well as Watch Us Rise. The main character, her name is Mika. Mika is a witch, and you are not supposed to know about witches. They have a secret society, and they meet like once every 3 months, every quarter kind of thing, to talk and catch up and things, and then they disperse. And having too many witches together in one area could cause the magic to kind of like get out of hand and could cause a lot of problems. So they are said to not be allowed like near each other. You got to stay away. As witches, it's a very isolating life. And there is this house, Nowhere House. There is like the gardener, his husband, the cook / person who like takes care of the home, and then this guy who is kind of in charge of these 3 kids that this person took in. And she's supposed to be like a archaeologist, travels around the world, finds these young women who need a home, who need a family, and it turns out they are 3 witches, and they are looking for somebody who can come in and teach them and tutor them in the way of witchcraft. So they call up Mika, they send her a little slide into her DMs there on Instagram, and are like, hey, we see that you post these witchy videos that are not real. You're not really a witch, but you really are a witch. Can you come help us take care of these kids? So very, very sweet found family story that I just absolutely adored and loved. Okay, so that is the books I have read so far for the year. And for the buzzwords, the buzzword for the theme for April is emotions. So Happy Place by Emily Henry is coming out in 5 days, so I will not be able to read that one, unfortunately, for the buzzword this month. But I was looking, because I have no books on my shelf that have an emotion in them. I have one called Desperate, and I was like, does Desperate count? Because I am desperate to find a book on my bookshelf for the buzzwords. As often as I can, I try to cram in books from the bookshelf that I already own. And I was looking up what other people have on their list for April, and love came up a lot, and I was like, love is an emotion. So, duh. I do have love on my bookshelf quite a lot, and I actually grabbed one from the library that I saw just there. They had a display, and it was just called Book Love. If I go to home, you all currently reading. It's just this Book Love one here, and it's just a graphic novel, and it's just basically her comics put together in a book. And she also wrote The Quiet Girl in a Noisy World. So I haven't read that one either, but I am just started this yesterday. It won't take me long to get through it, but it's not like a story or anything. It is just comics that she has written. So really enjoying Book Love for the April buzzword. It's the 20th today, so I do have time to pick up another one with love in the title, so we will see. And then the last thing I was going to show you was just some honorable mentions, or like what have I read this year that I've really enjoyed. So Beyond Reach, Karen Slaughter, love her books, love the Grant County series, and it ended devastatingly. So if you choose to pick up the Grant County series, you can kind of read them in any order you want, but make sure Beyond Reach is the last one that you read, or it'll ruin all the other books for you. The Kind Worth Killing is my first and only Peter Swanson so far, and I know he just came out with The Kind Worth Saving. I don't know if I'm going to read it or not. We'll see. I might just listen to it as an audiobook. But The Kind Worth Killing had a lot of twists and turns in it. It was pretty intense, and it was a good read for when I was sick in bed too. Like, I didn't have to put a lot of thought into it, but I'm glad I did have the physical book to look at as well, because there was, when they go from like part 1 to 2, I was like, okay, wait, what happened? And I'm like flipping back and looking, and I'm like, okay, that was pretty intense. I've heard a lot of mixed things about Peter Swanson, and he tends to ruin other books. So if you're gonna read anything from Peter Swanson, look into what other books it might spoil for you. I think he's the one that does the 8 Perfect Murders or whatever, and that spoils like 8 books. Watch Us Rise is definitely one of my favorite books I've read this year, and like I said, I talked about that one and The Very Secret Society in my 30 pages a day for the week reading challenge I did. And Watch Us Rise it just felt like it had a lot of passion in it for social justice, and it is YA. So there's definitely that passion of teenagers there and how they get into like, this is what's right and this is what's wrong. And it's very black and white and very much like, what can we do to save this or fix this or whatever. And I love that passion there and everything. And I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And I would definitely recommend it for sure, especially if you're into like the social justice and having a passion about your community and things you can do just to help better the world, but especially your little community in the world, like your high school, for instance, or as an adult, your workplace, or whatever. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches and The Bodyguard are 2 really good books that I listened to so far this year, or read. I read The Very Secret Society as an actual physical book, and The Bodyguard was an audiobook, and definitely highly recommend them. And The Secret Garden I would give like a 5 out of 5. Great for middle grade audiences and adults if you like that story. Peace and Turmoil was okay, but it was very much high fantasy. I don't know if it's like high fantasy or it's not light anyways, but it was a little bit confusing and very political for me, but I am glad that I have finally gotten to it. I bought it a couple years ago. Spy Family, highly recommend. Nana was something else. Everyone talks about the sexy grandma in Nana, and if you want spoilers and everything like that, or if you have read it and don't mind spoilers, or haven't read it and don't care about it, the live show from the book troupe on Gabby Reed's channel, they had a really good discussion about Nana. And We Need to Talk About Kevin is about a school shooting, so definitely look up triggers for that. And Kevin is evil, and I don't know if I'd put it on my like best books of the quarter, of the third of the year or not, but it was definitely intense. In My Own Moccasins is also a very hard memoir of resilience, it says, and a lot of drug abuse in there and sexual assault as well, very graphic and horrifying. So definitely something to look up trigger warnings for this book, but a very, very powerful memoir from a Canadian author as well, so that's really cool. And then I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I never followed Jeanette McCurdy at all growing up. She was just after my time of watching shows. She is from iCarly, and then Sam and Cat and Sam, I don't know. That show my kids were watching and I hated it. I think most people know what I'm Glad My Mom Died is about. as Jeanette McCurdy was a childhood actress and her mom pushed her into that, and a lot of abuse and stuff going on there. So definitely trigger warnings for that one as well, with emotional abuse. I don't know so much about physical abuse, but definitely some sexual. It is sexual abuse. It is, straight up. But to me, it's more like sexual inappropriate touches from her mom at the age that she was, like helping her shower and bathe at like 16. I don't remember if there was any like blatant sexual like rape or molestation from family members or anything. It was more what her mom did and treating her like a child when she was clearly not a child anymore. And also trigger warnings for eating disorders and emotional abuse and everything. So yeah, that is my reading so far in 2023. It is going fairly well. I'm enjoying what I'm reading and looking forward to diving into a lot more books this year and tackling my bookshelves. That's my number one goal. Just tackle the bookshelves. I won't even talk about the fact that I just bought 2 books today before coming home to record this. So I got Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone by Diana Gabaldon for 75 cents. It's a $45 hardback book, and I got it for 75 cents from my library. So very exciting. Let me know down below if you've done your stats or what your stats are. Like, how many books have you read this year? Are you on track to meet your goal? What is your goal for the year? And what are like your top 3 books that you have read so far this year? And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!